All right. All right. Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. As I've been reading through the prophet Jeremiah, different patterns and themes have been occurring, and there's also a very interesting progression when it comes to Jeremiah's character. By his character, I don't mean his integrity. I mean his, him as a person, his disposition and his feelings and the way he's reacting to the things that happen to him. Additionally, there is also God's perspective on the ordeal. For context, Israel has basically completely abandoned God. God made a covenant with them after he led them out of Egypt, and they verified the covenant, said, yes, we will follow you. Fast forward several hundred years, and Israel has basically forgotten God. However, they use his name as they still, they think because they have the temple that they're invulnerable. And as the years have gone by, the kings have gotten progressively worse and have worshipped idols. And idol worship is not just some funny thing you think about. There are lots of actions that take place in the worship of idols. One of the things that God mentions is that they offered child sacrifice, among other things. There's lots of sexual immorality and injustice and things like that. So, in the beginning of the book of Jeremiah, God has already decided what he's going to do. He has simply decided also that he is going to tell Jeremiah what he's going to do, and he wants Jeremiah to tell Israel what he's going to do. And it's ironic that God says he's going to do it, he won't relent, but at the same time he also says, if you do good, you will be blessed. I will basically not do it. And those two things can only be not contradictory when Israel is beyond hope. God can say, I will relent if you do good, and say, I will not relent when there is no possibility of them doing good. And God knows this. He knew this from the beginning because he is the one that weighs the hearts of men. Men judge by the outside, but the Lord weighs the heart. Well, Jeremiah, he has to be brought up to speed. God spends a considerable amount of time talking to Jeremiah and convincing Jeremiah of this reality, that Israel is beyond redemption. And there's several signs and parables and things that Jeremiah does to convey to the people of Israel what God is going to do. And as Jeremiah proclaims this catastrophe that is the invasion of the Babylonians, the judgment of God is going to fall upon Israel the same way the judgment of the people Israel displaced fell upon them. God said, do not do the sin of the people that came before you, because I will take you out of the land the same way I took them out, which was military conquest. So God is going to judge Israel with military conquest like he promised, and through Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. So Jeremiah prays for God to relent. He prays for God to forgive, for God to heal, for God to do what God does. Because God is a God of second chances and redemption and blessing and mercy and justice. But he's that last part, justice. Eventually, when the mercy is trodden upon, judgment is the only way forward. So, God tells Jeremiah to not pray for this people, which is that's wild, because the New Testament teaches Christians that we are to pray for our enemies. We are to pray for those in power. We are to pray that our lives are quiet and peaceful and respectable. We are always taught to pray. But for God to tell Jeremiah to not pray for the people of Israel, that is, it's hard to understate the magnitude of that instruction. Like, God won't even listen. And it's not because he hasn't been listening. It's because the people of Israel haven't been listening. It's hard to make an analogy that fits this scenario. When you're parenting and your child is being rebellious just for the sake of being rebellious, like not even just rebellious, they take everything that you've given them and use it for their own purposes. I don't even think that's accurate enough. Like, God has given Israel power, like military power, financial power, like worldly power. God has granted that to Israel. He gave King David tremendous victories on the battlefield. He gave Solomon unimaginable wealth. And kings that have come after them have inherited that legacy. They've suffered defeats, and there was the split of the kingdom, so it's not perfect. But God had established a people on earth, a earthly kingdom through Israel, and his name is being misrepresented. Like, Israel is associated with Yahweh, and the evil of Israel is widely known. And it's also completely forsaken Yahweh. So they are associated with Yahweh, but the people themselves have completely abandoned him. And it actually comes to a very, very nice point, like the point of a dagger, when God says, I will do this because of the deeds of some king. I forget who the king was. And then, so that begs the question, well, what did that king do? So I checked the cross-reference in my Bible. And that king erected idols in the temple. So normally idol worship takes place like on hills and in the countryside and in your house and pretty much everywhere, except for the temple. The temple was God's house. It was Yahweh's house. But this particular king defiled the very place that God was supposed to touch earth. Like, the temple was meant to be a new Eden. If you look at the description of the ornaments in the book of, I think it's 1st or 2nd Kings when Solomon builds the temple, maybe Chronicles, I'm not exactly sure. But there's pomegranates and there's trees and there's cherubim and there's all these images of the garden, because the garden was where God and man dwelt together. And the temple was meant to be a symbol of that, where God touched down to be with man. And now it's like they have reintroduced sin to that Eden. Like, we've doubled down. That king and thus the people, because the people didn't stop the king. So they doubled down on the fall, which is like wild. Like that's asking for trouble from God. So I think I went out. So that's asking for trouble from God. And God is not a pushover. God is not mocked. So I've gotten to the point in Jeremiah, I think it's in the early 20s, maybe mid 20s, like chapter 22 or 25 or somewhere in there, where Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem. And I haven't really gotten past that yet. I don't know. I've read the book of Jeremiah before. I know the context, but like, I know the gist of it. But this most recent read through has really opened my eyes to some of the themes that I've mentioned. But then there's the promise of Jesus. There is a promise of a Redeemer in the book of Jeremiah. In the midst of all this judgment, God promises a Redeemer anyway. And that... oh, wow, that's just... that is God in a nutshell. Though he slay me, I will believe, I will hope in him. Hope you guys enjoyed.